G'day, my name is Toadie, and today we'll be covering the first of hopefully two major updates for 2021 to NIArms for Arma 3. Before we begin, I want to point out that what you're about to see is work in progress. That is to say, you may see errors or missing assets, missing textures, missing sounds, that sort of thing. Just, please bear in mind that this is not the finished product. Some things are subject to change. With that out of the way, let's move on to the new content, because we got a lot to get through today. Right, so let's start with the biggest here. This is the H&K XM8s. Now, the XM8s are family of rifles that were developed by Heckler & Koch for the US Department of Defense as a means to replace the M4 and M16 with something more futuristic. As part of this, NIArms is replicating three key distinct, most common varieties of the XM8. As seen here on the table, this is the first generation. This is the initial prototypes. These contain the integrated sight optic into the carry handle. And moving along, we have the second generation. This is the version that went to troop trials. These contain the detachable sights, as well as a set of backup iron sights, and proper M16-style birdcage flash suppressors. And then we have the final generation displayed here, which is the MWSF trial. These were the last significant procurements, and contained the Picatinny rail on top there. There was a final iteration, but it was not made in significant enough numbers that it is of any relevance to anyone. Because these weapons are replacing basically pretty much all roles possible within the US military, NIArms is replicating as many of those as physically possible. Starting here on the left with the Grenadier version. The Grenadier version, of course, coming with the H&K XM8 side opening grenade launcher, the compact version for rear-line troops and special forces, and on the right here, the designated marksman and automatic rifle rolls. Technically, the two rifles are distinct, but for the purposes of display in games, they're functionally identical from the outside, and saved me some time. On top of that, the XM8s are coming in a slew of colors. As you can see here, we have the green, olive drab, as seen in the prototypes. We also have black, as seen in the troop trial version, and we also have a tan version. Tan was not one that was necessarily offered, but we've seen some of the accessories for the XM8 in this color, so it's safe to assume this was one of the planned ones. So, all up, this culminates in there being about 50 mainstream rifles being replicated here under the XM8. That's 3 generations of weapon, each with 4 rolls and in 4 colors, something like that. We also have 2 custom skins here. You have the Sharknose DMAR and the hand-painted Bass carbine. On top of that, let's get into accessories now. NIArms is coming with 7 optics. 4 of these are recolors of the original generation prototype red dots. The other 3 being a accurized marksman optic and the standard ISM, as well as a Picatinny rail version of the same optic. And there are also 5 side and underside accessories. 4 of these are recolored foregrips, which we will get into in a moment. So the XM8s had a variety of party tricks and scripts that were developed specifically for them. Now, some of the features that were developed for it have also been extended to the rest of NIArms, but for the moment we're going to be discussing primarily the implementations within the XM8 portion. So the first thing we have here is the Inside ISMII. It is a Red Dot Combat Optic, developed for the XM8, designed basically as a primary aiming method for the weapon. One of its party tricks is that it also contains a laser aiming module to forego the necessity for a IR illuminator or flashlight being mounted on the end of the weapon. They wanted it all in just a single package, don't have to touch any. So to implement this functionality into Armor, a little bit of lateral thinking had to be developed for this, because Armor does not allow you to implement laser functionality directly onto optics. It has to be part of an individual accessory attachment. So that was done, and it was split off into its own individual accessory. But to give this stuff as seamless as possible, like functionality, so it works just as you would expect it if you just picked up the ISM, an additional script was developed so that you would always have the laser with the red dot optic whenever it was mounted. So to demonstrate it, we are taking the optic off, and as you can see, it instantly gets rid of the laser aiming module. And then, as soon as we put it back on, instantly the laser comes back. This functionality is developed just so it just works Todd Howard level of like simplicity. And as an additional thing, just so it doesn't screw with any potential other attachments that you might want to put on an XM8, maybe. If it detects that there is already an existing flashlight, say just there, attached to the weapon, it will not override it. It will always defer to whatever is already on the weapon. And as soon as it detects that slot is free outside of the gear menu, it will then also put the laser back on. And to show here, we are using the flashlight. We take it off, and instantly, laser is back in, and it works. This functionality works with the ISM IR for the standard infantry rifles, as well as the AMO advanced marks. So the next script that was developed for the XM8s was a foregrip attachment system. If you've used RHS, you should be already familiar basically with how this works. You grab an accessory, in this case a foregrip, a vertical foregrip, you apply it to your weapon, and you get a visual change in the weapon stance and some minor ergonomic improvements to recoil and controllability. System works pretty much exactly the same here. The XM8s come with a set of 4 in each as an individual color, and as you can see, yeah, put the thing on and it works as you would expect, as demonstrated here. So the XM8s have one more party trick, and it's less a script or a system and more just a better way of doing things. The XM8s are the first release that are going to natively support the CBA Scripted Optics system. Now, in the past, all the optics were using standard Armor 3 handling, which think of the long range scopes. Right, it's that sort of optic. But the scripted optics system allows a high level of fidelity, accuracy, and like authenticity to the user's perspective, as contrast to the more static default implementation. Specifically with the XM8s, you can see it with the advanced marksman optic, which is a full power with a bullet drop compensator reticle, as you can see here. Right, so as opposed to the long, extensive introduction for the XM8s, the Johnson light machine gun is actually a pretty compact package here. So, as a bit of a blurb, this is the Johnson model 1941 light machine gun. It was developed by Melvin Johnson. It fires 30-06 from a 20-round magazine. It is a short recoil operation based light machine gun. It has a bipod. It also has a party trick, but I was not able to implement it due to complexity. I couldn't figure out a good way to do it. But it also feeds from 5-round Springfield 1903 stripper clips. giving it the ability to basically +5 load the weapon. Like I said, I couldn't figure a good way to do that functionally. That implementation may be developed later. But as it stands for the moment, it's a 600 RPM light machine gun with a bipod. It ranges out to 1,000 meters. It's like a bar, but better, if that makes any sense. So jumping back a bit to that short recall, what this means for in-game is it's got a lot of visual moving parts. Now, it doesn't actually have that much more parts than, say, like an XM8 or something. But for its time, it has a lot of like visual things that are like going backwards and forwards and things. So there's a lot of visual interest to this weapon, on top of, you know, its very odd-looking like outline. So as you can see from first-person perspective here, it's you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to look at, which is, you know, it's fun. I was very pleased and very happy with how this came off too. It's very satisfying. It was a very satisfying build. As you can see, we've got a reload here. Now, its other claim to fame is that between its two firing modes, it has a semi-automatic and full automatic fire. In semi-automatic fire, it is a closed bolt weapon, which is to say the bolt is forward and locked when it fires, and during full automatic fire, it fires from an open bolt. And again, this also is displayed on the weapon and gives it, you know, just a little bit more of that, you know, visual flavor. So we can see it here, opening, closing. As you can see, the inside of the chamber is also modeled with the locking lugs. All that is modeled and animates correctly, and we are about to see it fire in closed bolt. And that is the selector into fully automatic fire. And as you can see, just there's a lot of work that went into this, and it's just full of moving parts to look at. It's fascinating watching it. The Johnson will be releasing with 2 magazines and 1 weapon. So that is Tracer FMJ and Tracer magazines plus the rifle itself. There are no real fancy. As I said, ranges out to 1,000 meters, and it is perfectly zeroed. I made sure of that. Right, onto the major content updates and changes to NIArms overall. If you were paying attention in the previous section with Johnson, you might have clued into this already, but thanks to Jarhead of JSRS and Sog Prairie Fire renown, had offered to do some serious audio overhauls for NIArms, and that is coming in the form of a Gunshot audio overhaul, and we're about to get a sample of it in a second. But yes, it has made huge. It's made a huge difference to how guns sound, how guns feel. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal job. I'm immensely impressed with both how Jarhead works and also just the end result of this. Get some indoor audio as well. It really just brings everything up to a new level. One of the specific categories that benefits the most from this IMO is machine gun command. you can see why. This is just... Do I need to go on? Actually, you know what? Let's have a sample of the distant audio, because this is overall. This doesn't just affect close range. So I've set up 2 squads to fight in the distance here. It's about 400 or 500 meters. As a disclosure, I'm also using actual JSRS, so things like explosions, ricochets, gun snaps, that sort of thing is, you know, JSRS, not NIArms. Just please bear that in mind. So moving on to the next major systemic change to NIArms is the implementation, as alluded to earlier, of a foregrip system, very similar to RHS's in like user end implementation. Yeah, basically you grab an accessory, you stick it on the weapon, and the stats changes as according to whatever is set in the weapon config. While the front end is very much identical to like an RHS implementation, and it just works, on the back end it's very different because I went for a much more extensible system. So basically, the system relies on keyword on like a keyword system, and when the weapon detects that a weapon detects that an attachment has a certain keyword in it, it will switch to the appropriate like hand gesture, and it will do this naturally. Of course, this whole thing is going to be available as part of the NIArms source code because NIArms is open source. And if somebody like CBA wanted to implement this as something a lot more standardized, you know, it will be available on GitHub upon release. I'm very happy with the implementation, how it works. So the next system that we're going to go over is something I really planned for the SCAR release rather than this one, but I kind of got the baselines all set up for this, and I kind of didn't want to take it out again just so I could release them at the proper time, so I just nutted through and finished them. And that is rail covers or rail panels. These are like these are accessories to stick on the side of your weapons for just a little bit more like personalization and such. The drawback of this has turned out to be that you need an order of magnitude number of accessories, both in like weapon meshes and as configs. So there is a considerable amount of just like iterative work involved in making this, which is why I have kept the number of permutations of this down to as low as I can. So there's only 4 colors, 5 technically. But I want to give, you know, a little bit of extra flair to the end user, a little bit of extra personalization, and they've turned out quite well. We got XTMs, XTMAs, Magpul XTs. We got the little rubber rail protector things, the tiny little thin ones, and they all turned out very well. And they come in 4 colors plus a pride one at the moment. I will be putting up the sources, so if anybody really wants to make their own colors and stuff, you know, I'll let you go ham, but this is already starting to, like, fuse my mind with the literal hundreds of configs this took. Right, the next system that was alluded to in the XM8 release is the Scripted Optics system. So this, as you can see from the Steyr org reticle here, is really the real good selling. It's really just like selling why this change was made. Like, this is so much more usable than what it was before, and this is really the selling point of it to me. These reticles are like dead on to like the mil dot as far as I've been able to replicate. As you can see, it works fine. You still have the backup iron sights, that sort of thing. But this is also not just limited to like a particular platform. This is every single 2D optic in the game. I have gone through and I've recreated the reticles manually. I have made sure that they are accurate, not just visually, but like metrically. And also I've gone to the extent of like replicating the scope bodies and things. It's really, it was a lot of work, but it really pays off. And as you can see, you know, it's miles better than what it was before. And this is, you know, this is across all 2D optics in NIArms. So the next big wow feature for NIArms is one that I really was not expecting at all. And we have to thank for this TepacheLoco of Free World Arsenal and Spearpoint. Because one day I was offered a crate load of STGW 57 rifle grenades, courtesy of Free World Arsenal and Tepache themselves. This pack contains the AP, armor, anti-personnel, AT, anti-tank, smoke grenades, and also the ubiquitous flying carrot of death, the practice grenade. All four are available as part of NIArms now. And yeah, let's do a little bit of a demonstration here. So, of course, nothing goes unanimated with me. And let's start off with the armor pierce. So we have a variety of targets set up here. This is a tractor at 50 meters. As you can see, the AP ones don't do a whole lot to even unarmored vehicles, but they're quite effective as, obviously, you know, anti-personnel weapons. 100 meters, we have a Orca PO30, and yeah, similar sort of deal. Not particularly effective against vehicles. And yeah. This is kind of what you would expect, even from like a 40 millimeter, like an M203 grenade launcher round. Where it gets really interesting, at least to me, is its capabilities at either long range as an indirect fire weapon, it zeroes out to like 300 meters here, or using the anti-tank rounds, because these are really what the STGW was. The STGW 57's rifle grenades were like keen for. These were built for T-72 killers, right? And yes, turns a tractor into a burning ball of fire. So, of course, shot placement matters, and if you miss, like I did here, you know, you fucking miss. And you'll see in a second, where you hit on the tank matters. But the general idea here is, you know, even shooting short, that still does a considerable amount of damage. Finally at 150, I think this was, yeah, dead on. So, it does still really depend on where you're shooting, as to how effective it is. But, you know, like, the same can be said of all anti-tank weapons, really. But yes, they are deadly if you can get a really good, like, rear or side shot. These things were designed to defeat T-72s. They're quite impressive. And I, again, have to thank TepacheLoco. Do go check out Spearpoint and Free World Arsenal. They're excellent mods. I would highly recommend. So I think probably the last most significant thing to look at today is the there's some material changes that I've been making to the physical materials within NIArms. And probably one of the best ones to show it off here is the G3s, because these are the ones that I think are probably most revolutionary in their improvement. I really wasn't happy with the overall look of the G3's materials before, and I've been going through and I've just been trying to update and make things look nice. And one of the changes I made was to reflectivity of materials, and as you can see here, the handling of it is much better. It looks and feels quite nice now, and yeah. I've been going through and all the NIArms packs have been given. So that's going to pretty much bring us to the end of the preview. There are, in fact, more changes that have happened under the hood, and when the release comes through, I would highly encourage you, if you're interested, to go have a look at the change logs. But I guess that's probably gonna have to do it for now. I'd like to thank you all for sticking through. This has obviously been a longish video. I'd like to thank a few people before we go. I'd like to thank TepacheLoco for their contribution of the rifle grenades for the STGW 57. I'd like to thank Jarhead, who has been a phenomenal person to work with, and I would like to thank Kirk Kasha over at Iron Front Armor 3 for their help in debugging some of my script work. It was a lot to go through, and obviously there's a lot that has gone into this, but it's not the only thing that I've been working on in the last 12 months. If you are familiar with the CDLC SOG Prairie Fire, I did animation work for that. I would highly recommend you go check that out if you like my work. On top of that, it also includes the work of Jarhead and dozens of other highly talented individuals. It's an excellent CDLC. It's basically retail quality in my book, and it's got some of my best work in it. I'd highly recommend you check that out if that's your thing. If you'd like to keep abreast of my goings-on and also the whatever's going on with NIArms, you can always, of course, check out my Twitter. If you would like to support me monetarily, because this is, at this point, basically my prime-time job, please check me out on Patreon. Links are below in the description. Thank you all for taking time out of your day.